Hello and welcome. Today we're just going to have a little quick video on the Behringer X-Touch Mini, which is this little controller here. It is a set of 8 knobs controller, USB MIDI only, but I see a lot of questions about this or products like this online all the time, especially regarding the use with it with Ableton, because since you have 8 knobs, 8 macros, we'll get into that. But I will say, you know, it's a very affordable controller. For $100, you get a bunch of buttons, knobs, and one fader, which is fine. And solid build quality. So before this turns into a marketing ad on the Behringer X-Touch Mini, let's just get right into it. So first of all, let's go into the preferences and just make sure that everything's set up properly. So under Link MIDI Control Surface, you want to select Master Control for the control surface, and then under Input and Outputs, just X-Touch Mini for both, and just make sure that Remote is on for the Master Control Input X-Touch Mini. Now, this should work so that, for example, if I go into here and we look at the macro knobs on the side here, they should match up pretty well. Good to know. Now, the way that the X-Touch Mini works with Ableton is by using a script that is also the same script that you would use for the larger touch series devices. So in this case, you don't have some extra faders, so you won't be using any of that functionality, but you can use all the encoders, you can use some of the buttons here, and of course the master volume here as well if you'd like. But let's get into the encoders first. Over here, these 4 buttons are actually 4 modes, and you want to select the 4th one, as that's actually device control. So this will allow you to control macros or common parameters for devices. So I like to use this mode the best because it's actually the most useful, whereas these ones are for selecting inputs, amount of sends, and pans per each track. But let's start with the device mode here. So first of all, you'll notice that if you try to move anything, it won't actually affect your device at all. And we only have one glowing LED, which is a little weird. So what you actually want to do is you tap that down. This actually represents the rack that I have loaded in here. So if I tap this button again, it will reset. And just notice what happens if I put in a ping pong delay. Now there's another LED ring that lit up. So these are the devices that are open on your instrument's track channel. So if we go into here, let's just turn down this dry wet knob for the ping pong, and we'll tap it again just to go back to the first one. Now I've selected my pads, and you can see we have control of the cutoff. So this way, you can use this for performance, for studio use, for sound design, just tailoring of your sound in a sense. If you like tweaking presets, it's a great way to interact with your sounds hands-on without doing any MIDI mapping, which is really awesome because normally you would have to do MIDI mapping over here, and then you manually select that one parameter in Ableton Live to the one knob, but then you are limited to only using that knob for that parameter. In this case, we're actually dynamically changing the behaviors of these knobs, and we're getting also representation of the values right on the hardware. So again, if I increase the cutoff, already I can see I'm almost to the maximum here on the LED, and if we look over in Ableton, it's already to the max. So it's a really great visual way to work with the hardware controller here. And let's say I've changed the sound too much. So here I've just made so many edits that it doesn't sound like a pad anymore. So what I could do is I can actually tap down on these buttons, and notice how the LEDs jump back into the place where they used to be. What's even more powerful though is that you can select another track, and this will automatically remap the knobs to control that currently selected track's devices. So again, we just make sure we select the first device, and now we have a bass. This one I have mapped so I can select different basses, just like this. I can change the release. But you get the idea there. This is really useful, and again, just tap this button again. That's the 4th one from the middle here, or I guess the 6th one overall. So that about covers the device mode here. Again, there's some other modes we can go over here. Again, you can select your inputs, you can control some sends. So in this case, I'm selected on track 2. So if I had more sends, I could control the amount of sends for that one as well. There's panning for that, but this is per track. So notice that this is per track, and I can always tap to reset. And then device mode, again, we're back to the buttons that can be mapped. We have some buttons for moving the little arrangement needle back and forth between the looping points, I think. And then we have some buttons that will allow you to add some punch in and punch out marks. And you have a cursor mover, you have a loop on and off, stop, play, record. So that's about it. I mean, I don't personally use these buttons a whole lot other than perhaps the transport controls. It's really useful to have the loop, you know, stop, play, record on here. But aside from that, the main functionality I see useful with this with Ableton is using the device controls dynamically like that across various tracks. So that's about it for the X-Touch Mini. It's a pretty versatile controller and, you know, very affordable. So, you know, something to consider instead of maybe a MIDI Twister by DJ Tech Tools, which is a great option if you're looking for 16 knobs. But if you're just looking for something utilitarian and just, you know, low risk, I think this is a good choice, especially since you still get LED feedbacks. But yeah, this is something you can throw on top of a keyboard controller or maybe some other drum pads that you have at home. So definitely interesting choice. But if you have any questions, maybe I didn't address something that you wanted me to address, just leave it in the comments or send me a message. I'll be sure to follow up with you there. So in the meantime, just go make some music and have fun. Take care.